Welcome to Shir Torah Anytime. We're up to Perek Chav Gimel, the second to last Perek. This Perek is also from the appendixes of sorts to the entire Shmuel Beis. And in the last Perek we had the Shira from David, and here there's a Nevuah from David. It's like the last words from David. Not that it's actually technically the last words, but it's like the llast parting message from David HaMelech. It's like the parting concepts that he learned in his life. Ve'ele divrei David ha'achronim. These are the last words of David HaMelech. Ne'um David ben Yishai u'ne'um ha'gever hukam oil. Mashiach Elikei Yisrael Elikei Yaakov Ne'im Zmires Yisrael, sweet singer of Israel. So these are the last words. So he's saying he's David ben Yishai. He's the man who was given the responsibility, and he was anointed to be the king over the Jewish people through the command of the God of Yaakov, Ne'im Zmires Yisrael, sweet singer of Israel. Ruach Hashem diber bi imilosi alashoni. So David HaMelech is really sharing a prophecy that he had, the prophetic vision. Amar Elikei Yisrael, the God of Israel told me, V'li diber tzur Yisrael, and the Rak of Israel spoke to me, Moshel ba'adam, and he told me that I should be a ruler over the people, and he commanded me that I should be tzaddik Moshel yiras Elikim, that I should be a just ruler who fears God. And he promised me that my greatness would shine like the morning sun, with no clouds. I'm going to shine and sparkle like the morning sun shines on the dew on the land. So he was really saying that he was given a great promise in his reign. And he said, Ki loy chein beisi im keil, ki v'ris oilam shamli arucha bakoil, u'shmura ki chol yishi v'chol chefetz, ki loy atzmiach. That Hashem promised me that he's really saying that there's nobody like me, not before me and not after me. David HaMelech was saying that David HaMelech's legacy and the message of David HaMelech, there's nothing like his message is going to be like before or after. So that's one thing he's saying, that, I want you to know that my life story, my songs, my experiences is something that's going to be really relevant in a very deep way for all time. Like we see today. We see that David HaMelech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. Uv'liyal, a second message is Uv'liyal, the people who are B'li oil, which I just show him. I want you to know, Kekoitz munad kulam, when they're young, when you have a rasha or evil, when they're young, you can still rip it out. But once it gets strong and it grows and you let it fester and you don't pull it out, you won't be able to grab it. And the person who's going to want to grab on to a thorn once it grows thick, or you're going to want to take care of evil once it gets out of control, then you're going to have to take iron. Ve'etz chanis, you're going to need a tool like a sword or shears. And the only thing you'll be able to do with it is actually to burn it. The message he's saying is that I learned from my life that eradicate evil when it's still small, when you still have a grasp on it, because once it gets out of control and is strong and powerful, it's going to be a very bloody, difficult task to get rid of it. So that's the last message of David. Very simple. You should know that I was promised that I'm going to be a light. I have a tremendous message for the world. We're living that message today. And the second thing is root out evil when it's still in its infancy. Now these next psukim are complicated. Took me a while to figure it out, the basics. It's really a countdown. It's really counting out all of the warriors of David HaMelech. And there's some interesting anecdotes and stories that come out. These are the names of the warriors which were to David, Yoshev Vashovas, who sat with him. Now, in Chazal, it either means literal warriors or it means Talmid Chachamim, who sat with him in the Sanhedrin. Tachkemoini Rosh HaShalishi. Tachkemoini was the wisest one. Rosh HaShalishi, he was the head of these three, of the three top warriors of David HaMelech. And his name was Pashat Pshat, who Adinoi Ha'etzni. His name was Adinoi Ha'etzni. He was strong like a tree. And he was able to take a sword, 800 enemies he was able to knock out. The second one of his top 3 warriors was Va'acharav, was Elazar ben Doidoi, ben Achoichi. Bishloisha Giborim im David. He was one of the 3 warriors that were with David. B'charfam ba'plishtim nesfu sham l'melchama, and the Plishtim gathered around. Vayalu ish Yisrael, and the Yidden ran away. He was one of the 3 that helped win that battle. And by that battle, who come? Elazar ben Doidoi got up. Vayach ba'plishtim ad ki yogo yodoi. He battled so strong and so fiercely until his hand almost became paralyzed, that it became stuck to the sword. His hand became stuck to the sword. That's how he battled, that he lost the ability to open his hand. And the people ran away. And when they came back, there was nothing left to do because the Plishtim ran away already. Which means that the message of this warrior was that he battled so strong that his hand and the battle became one. Va'achrav, and the third warrior was Shama ben Ogei Harari. He came from the mountain. It was Shama ben Ogei from the mountain. Vayasvu Plishtim lechaya. When the Plishtim gathered around like wild beasts, Vatisham Chelkas Asodom Alei Adashim. There was a field full of lentils. It was a lentil field. And we'll see soon why it's relevant, this lentil field. V'ya'am nas mipnei Plishtim. And the story was that the Yidden ran away. He stood in this field of the lentils. He saved it. He smote the Plishtim. Now this lentil field is going to be relevant soon, and we'll see. Now these are the top 3 warriors. Under these top 3 warriors from David HaMelech, there's another 3. These 3 we're familiar with in the stories of Shmuel and Shmuel Beis. And it says here, Vayedu shloisha me'ashaloisha mirosh. There was 3 from these 30. Vayavoy el katzir el David. It was during the harvest. El ma'aras adulam, they came to ma'aras adulam where David HaMelech was hiding out there. V'chayas Plishtim choynu be'emek Refoim. And there was a band of Plishtim which were camping in Emek Refoim. V'David oz ba'metzuda, and David was in a guarded place. U'matzav Plishtim oz beis lochem, and this band of Plishtim, or this camp of Plishtim, was beis lochem. And what happened was, vayisaveh David vayomer. David was thirsty. He had a desire, and he said, Mi ashkeni mayim mi boir beis lechem asher b'shoar. Who is going to bring me water, cold water, which was in the entrance of beis lochem? Now Chazal say that it doesn't literally mean that he wanted water, even though in Pashup Pshat it doesn't mean he wanted water, but it also means that he had a shayla. He had a halachic question. And he wanted that they should go, he wanted somebody should find out the question. Now, it's a machloikis in Chazal what the question was, but I'm going to go in one of the pshatim in Chazal. In the Gemara it says that his question was like this: this field of Adoshim, which we mentioned before, this lentil field, belonged to the Jews, and the Plishtim were hiding out in this field of Adoshim. So he wanted to go burn this field of Adoshim, and through burning the field of these lentils, he would automatically knock out all of the Plishtim. The halachic question was, are you allowed to go be mazik? Are you allowed to be mazik a field? Are you allowed to ruin,
eminent domain,
destroy the field of somebody in order to save it? So obviously the psak was that you are. Of course you're allowed to. Pekuach nefashos. For sure you're allowed to. But that wasn't his question. His question was not if I'm allowed to. If after I did it, am I obligated to pay for this field? That means, of course you're allowed to because you have to. It's pekuach nefesh. But am I obligated to pay for the field? So they went to ask the Shaila. Now come along. Vayivku shloishes gagiborim b'machne Plishtim. Vayishavu mayim miboir beis lochem asher b'shal. So either they brought back physical water or they brought back the response, the tshuva on this question. Vayisav vayaviu al David, and they brought the response to David of the water. V'loi ava l'shtoisam. He didn't want to drink this water, or he didn't want to accept the halachic ruling. He poured it out before God. Now, if you're going a little pshat that it means water, he didn't want to even though he said, "Oh yeah, I want water," but he didn't actually mean that they should endanger themselves to bring the water. So he didn't want to benefit from the water. He didn't want to say, "Hey, I have warriors who I put them in danger in order that I should be able to benefit from it on a personal level." So in those years there was a bama. So he poured out that water on Nisach Hamayim, even though Nisach Hamayim is only later on Sukkot, but he did Nisach Hamayim that he said, "I'm going to give away this water that was brought to me for Hashem." That's Pashup Pshat. The next level is that the tshuva that they brought back when they asked this question was that in a regular case, yes, of course you're allowed to burn down a field to save yourself from danger, but you have to pay. But being that you're a melech, being that you're David a melech, and like Rebbe Elvel said, it's eminent domain, so then, no, you're not mechuyev to pay, because you're the king. And on that, David a melech said that he didn't want to accept that psak, that he's not going to have to pay. He's not going to have to pay for this water, for the field that he destroyed, and he said, "I'm going to pay anyway." So that's what he was. The Nisach Hamayim means it was Menasich the Tshuva, that he had a legal loophole and he didn't want to use that legal loophole, and he gave that legal loophole away for Hashem, and he said, "I'm going to go lifnu meshit," so then I'm going to pay. But regardless, the message of the story, either way you slice it, is very in tune with what we said before, with what David HaMelech said, that he was commanded to be a ruler, a Yirei Elikim, and he should be b'tzedek, and he shouldn't be somebody who's going to take benefit for himself. If you remember Shmuel Hanavi back when they wanted to take a melech, he also said, he was upset that they wanted a king, and he said that, did I ever take advantage? Did I ever use anything from you? One of the altruistic traits of a leader that Klal Yisrael needs is somebody who's not here to benefit, even though he's in a position that he's able to, that he doesn't take it for himself. And that's the message of the story of his warriors, of his Giborim, and the story of his giving it up, of not taking advantage. Vayomer, and David HaMelech said, Cholilo li Hashem, God forbid that I should drink this water or utilize this halachic loophole. Am I going to drink the blood of those that sacrifice their lives in order to save me? He didn't want to drink it. That's the story of these three warriors who sacrificed themselves in order to save David HaMelech. And the deeper level is, it's not only, it's in the beginning was he was Ava, right? In the beginning of the story starts, he was Ava. That means he desired, let's go on the pshat of the halachic. He was Ava, he desired to know the halacha. He desired to know what does the Torah say in such a case. But he also, the same way he desired to learn Torah and connect Hashem through this Torah, he also desired not to take advantage of it. That's like what Chazal say, that the Talmud Chacham, it's also, the Torah is not allowed to be a kardam lachpebo. You're not allowed to use Torah as a kardam, as a hoe, in order to take advantage for yourself. That means that there's a certain level where a person is so connected to Torah and he's so connected to Hashem, even when he's learning about how you can screw the system, or what benefits you have from the system, he's not actually doing it in order to figure out how he can screw the system. He's learning the Torah because he wants to connect to the truth and to know how the world operates. But he has no intention that he's going to figure out how he could utilize it for his own benefit, how to make a living out of it. Anyway, back on the story. So far, according to the Cheshbon, we have two sets of three Geborim. Okay, no, again, there's a lot of Heterim and Chazal, how people for Torah
make money on it. Shabbos, Rulos, Hamas, you make money on almost anything.
Right. It's problematic. That means in an ideal world where people have parnasa from other means, that's why you have Torah Gedula, that's the mile of somebody who's Torah Gedula, that somebody has parnasa from somewhere else, is that he learns Torah for its own sake, and he never has any ulterior motives in it. The problem of being Kardam Lachpoid is that, being that you have Negias, and you always have an ulterior motive, you always get skewed in your mind to figure out a way how you can benefit from it. So you're not really true to the end game. So that's in Pashup Pshat. But ultimately, there's a Teirem Chazal, and there's Schar Batala, and there's all different ways how people can teach Torah and how people get paid for it because they would be able to do something else. But ultimately, the Torah Hashem is in order for us to connect to the secrets of the universe and to connect to the meaning of the world and what's behind it. and to bring the dira, to make for Hashem a dira b'tachtonim, to find ways.
Stay every day in Arab, so you're learning in order to do it. You got to do it too. So if you're doing the mitzvah for the sake of the mitzvah, you make the money as well. What's the issue with that?
If you're doing the mitzvah, you're doing schar mitzvah, it's mitzvah. You're doing the mitzvah in Chassidus. A mitzvah has a double meaning, right? Mitzvah, Pashup Pshat, means a tzivoy, a command, right? Mitzvah. But in Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe talks about it a lot of times, that mitzvah is a lashon of tzavsa v'chiber. Mitzvah is a lashon of a tzavsa, a tzvengel. Tzavsa also means to be with a band, to be connected, to be together. Tzavsa v'chiber, like we're now sitting together, we're b'tzavsa v'chiber. So a mitzvah means that it's a double trip, that when the king gives you a command, how do you have a connection with the king? When you listen to his command, so then you're creating, then there's a tzafsa, then I'm together with you. Otherwise, what's my relationship with you? There's other than Eved, but if I don't listen to you, so then with what are we connected? But the point of a mitzvah is to create the tzafsa. So that's why schar mitzvah is mitzvah. The schar of a mitzvah, the schar of doing a command, a mitzvah, is that mitzvah, I have a tzafsa. So somebody who learns Torah from that vantage point, from that perspective, he's looking for tzafsa. He's looking for connection. How? I'm studying your wisdom. I'm learning how the universe is constructed. I'm learning the meaning behind the universe. I'm learning what the world was intended for. That's why I'm here. The second my ego gets involved and it's about me, it's not about the tzafsa anymore. You lose the tzafsa. Anyway, back on the Giboy Yisrael, Va'avishai Achi Yoav ben Tzeruya, Hu Roish HaShloisha. So if you're going to count out the names now, you're going to see there's really 29. And Farshim explained they split two of the names so that you should have 30. So that's how you have 36 Giboyim, and then it's problematic how you have the 37th Giboy. And we'll figure it out. He was the head of these last three, the three who were Moshe Nefesh for David. He was the head. Avishai Achioy was the brother. He was the one. He was also a tremendous warrior, and he battled and he killed 300 people. But the point is that he was the head of these three, not Yoav. Yoav, it seems, never gets mentioned because Yoav is like the commander in chief of all of the warriors. From these three who brought the water. So Avishai was Achi Nichbad. He was the most important one, prominent one. But to the first three, they didn't come. That means the three warriors that we always have mentioned in all of the story of Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis, those three don't even come close to the top three that we know nothing about. It's like, like the 36 hidden tzaddikim. Like, we only know the stories of the three warriors who was Avishai, and they sacrificed themselves in order to bring him the tshuva from Chazal, or they killed themselves in order to bring water. But they don't even come close to the three warriors that we know nothing about. Uvnayahu ben Yoyada, that's the second name that we know. He was Ben Ishchayel. He was a warrior, and everybody knows that Ben Ishchai gets the name of his father from here, but here it says Ben Ishchayel. And he was Rav Pa'olim. He was a Baal Zerizes. He feared Hashem. He was a Rav Pa'olim. He did a lot of action. He was a Ish Asiyah. Mikabtze'el, from the city of Kabtze'el. Hu hika shnei Ariel Moav. He killed the two Giborim warriors from Moav. V'hu yorad v'hika so'ari b'teichaboid. There was another story that he killed a lion that was in a pit b'yoyim hasholeg, when there was a snowy, wintry day, and a lion has a lot more leverage than people do, because, like the Bible says, you can slip all over the place, but a lion has a good grip. And in that compromised circumstances, he still managed to take him out. Which means, basically, he had no fear. He was connected. V'hu hikas ish mitzri. He was once confronted a mitzri. Ish mara, fearful appearance. Uviyada mitzri chanis, and this Egyptian fellow had a sword, but he didn't. Vayered elav bashovet, so he came to him with a stick. Now you have to have a lot of guts to go to a big fearful mitzri with just a stick when he has this huge sword. He stole the sword from the Mitzri using his stick. And he killed the Mitzri using his own sword. So that was an extreme act of bravery. That he was, first of all, he overcame his inner fear, and he used whatever he had at his disposal, stick, to take advantage and use the Mitzri's leverage, to leverage the Mitzri against himself. Which is ultimately the biggest chachma, when you can leverage somebody against himself. And he was one of those three. Now we're going to the next 30. Min HaShaloshim, from the next 30. Nichbad ve'el HaShloisha loiba.
Shloishim or like Shalishim?
Min HaShaloshim, from these 30 that we're counting. Binyahu was Nichbad, was from the most prominent of them. And therefore he's not counted from the 30 because he's from the 3. Ve'el HaShaloisha loiba. And those 3 who brought the water don't compare. Vayasimeu David el Mishmatoi, and he put him in command. Now we're going into the names of the other warriors. There was Asohel, Achiyoyov, Bashloishim. Asohel was part of them, and we spoke about Asohel. He was killed. Elchanan ben Doidoi. There was Elchanan ben Doidoi who came from Beis Lochem. There was Shamo Acharoidi who came from a city called Choroid. Eliko Acharoidi, Cheletz Apalti, he came from a place, it was called Pelet. Ira ben Ikesh HaTakoyi, he came from Takoya. Aviezer Ansoisi, Mibnei Achushasi, he came from Choishes. Tzalmoino Achoichi, Maharehan Toifasi. Then there was Chelev ben Bano and a Toifasi who came from the Toifes. Itai ben Rivai, Migivas b'nei ben Yomen. There was Ben Yahu Piroisani, he came from Pirosan. Hidai ben Achles Goesh. There was Avi Elboino Arvasi, came from Arvas, and then there was Azmaves HaBarchumui, who came from Rechoim, or Barchoim. El Yagba HaShalvoini, came from Shalvoin, B'nei Yoshein, Yonason, and his name was Yonason. Shamo Arori, came from the mountain, Achion ben Shoror, who Arori. Elifelet ben Achazbi ben Amakasi, this is the one. No.
It's with an aleph.
Elifelet ben Achazbi ben Amachasi, Eliam ben Achitoifel Agiloini. So this is those who say that Elifelet ben Achazbi and ben Amachasi is 2 different names. That's how you get a count of 30 if you count all the names. Chetzrei HaKarmeli came from Carmel, Pa'arai or Arbi. Then there was Yigal ben Noson Mitzoivo in Bonai Hagodi. There was Tzelek or Amoini. Nachrai Have Eirosi. Noisei Klei Yoav ben Tzruya. He was the carrier, the arms bearer of Yoav ben Tzruya, who was the general, and he doesn't get counted because he was on top of them all. Then there was Ida HaYisri and Garev HaYisri. Uri Achiti we know about. He was the one who was killed from the story of Basheva, and he was the one who David HaMelech sent from the Giboyri Yisrael to get killed on the front. Koil Shloishim V'Shiva. Altogether, it's 37. So if you count it, it comes out to be really 35. Then you have when you split the name, and then if you count Yoav, it comes out to 37. That's the cheshbon. So the message is like, it's very hard. These perakim, these last perakim, it doesn't flow in the rest of the story. It's like from different parts of the stories of Shmuel, of David HaMelech. But to sum it up, one message was that David HaMelech's last words was that you should know the life that I lived is something extraordinary. Root out evil in its infancy. And in the stories that we mentioned about his Giboidim, we found out that there was 3 hidden warriors that we never knew about, and those were on the top. A lot of times, there's people who are behind the scenes. You know, there's all these people who we met them already before, but then there's people behind the scenes that accomplish a lot more than the ones who are, the people in the back office accomplish a lot of times more than the people who are in the office. And then we learned a fascinating story which brings out this Nakud of David HaMelech, that even though he learned Torah and he was Avo, he still never took advantage of it for his own benefit. And that, my friends, is the message of Perek Chav Gimel.